Real Music 101 transformed Maya's tiny apartment into a makeshift studio. Ring lights replaced table lamps, and her living room wall now bore a simple backdrop featuring her growing collection of guitars, including a new Gibson, bought with her channel's first sponsorship payment. Each evening, after her shifts at Randy's, she filmed content that bridged the gap between viral trends and musical education. But it was her series, Behind the Music, What They Don't Tell You, that struck a deeper chord. In episode 3, without naming names, she discussed creative ownership. Your art is your heartbeat, she explained, demonstrating how changing even a few notes could mask song theft. Today, we're talking about protecting your original work, because I learned the hard way that talent isn't enough. You need to understand the business. The comment section exploded. This happened to me last year with my band. Can you do a video about copyright registration? Finally, someone talking about the dark side of the industry. Maya's subscriber count hit 500,000 within 3 months. Music schools began sharing her videos, praising her innovative teaching methods. But it was her honesty about industry pitfalls that truly set her apart. She created templates for songwriter agreements, explained contract red flags, and shared resources for legal protection, all while teaching guitar techniques that made music accessible to everyone. A watershed moment came when international pop star Lena Martinez shared Maya's video about predatory producers. Required watching for all young artists, Lena posted, "Wish I'd had this knowledge when I started." The post brought an influx of industry professionals to Maya's channel, including several who'd had run-ins with James Patterson's label. Private messages flooded her inbox. "They tried the same thing with my songs. The producer promised to make me a star if I lost all rights to my original compositions when." Maya developed her Protect Your Art online course in response, collaborating with entertainment lawyers who offered pro bono consultations to emerging artists. The course covered everything from copyright basics to contract negotiation, interwoven with Maya's personal insights about the emotional cost of creative theft. During a live Q&A session, a young singer asked about dealing with betrayal in the industry. Maya's hands still on her guitar strings as memories of Sarah flooded back. Instead of deflecting, she shared her truth. Success built on someone else's pain isn't success at all, but your response to betrayal, that defines your legacy. The clip went viral beyond music circles, reaching into the broader entertainment industry. Acting schools, dance academies, and art institutes began incorporating her course materials into their curricula. Maya's inbox filled with speaking invitations from music conferences and universities. She was no longer just a guitar teacher. She had become a voice for change in an industry notorious for silencing its victims. And somewhere in her growing community of supporters, evidence was building that would soon bring her full story to light. The Blue Room was packed that Friday night, the kind of crowd Midnight Bloom had dreamed about during their cafe days. Steam rose from coffee cups, mixing with the amber stage lights as Maya's fingers found their familiar place on the guitar strings. Their newest song, Winter's Echo, had become a local favorite, with its haunting melody and Sarah's soaring vocals telling a story of lost love and second chances. But halfway through the second verse, the unthinkable happened. Sarah's voice, usually strong and unwavering, faltered. Maya glanced up from her guitar, concerned, and followed Sarah's frozen gaze to a figure standing near the back wall. Even in the dim light, James Patterson was unmistakable. His confident stance, designer clothes, and that same intense look he wore in Sarah's old photographs. He traded his college guitar for a platinum producer's credential that hung around his neck, but his effect on Sarah remained unchanged. Maya recovered quickly, improvising an extended guitar solo to cover the moment. The audience, lost in the music, never noticed the subtle shift in dynamics, but Maya felt it acutely. The slight tremor in Sarah's voice when she rejoined the song, the way her shoulders tensed with each chord progression. After the show, Sarah disappeared before their usual post-performance ritual of analyzing what worked and what needed polish. Maya found her phone buzzing with a text, "Sorry, ran into an old friend. Important industry connection. Rain check." That rain check turned into a pattern. Sarah began arriving late to rehearsals, her eyes glued to her phone screen, thumbs dancing across the keyboard with rapid-fire responses to messages she wouldn't share. Their seamless harmonies developed subtle cracks, Sarah suggesting last-minute changes to arrangements they'd perfected, pushing for a more commercial sound that felt foreign to Maya's artistic sensibilities. "James thinks we could really break through with a different approach," Sarah would say, not meeting Maya's eyes. "He has connections with major labels. This could be our big chance." Maya swallowed her concerns, remembering Sarah's unwavering support when they'd started. She covered for her partner at 3 local shows, rearranging their duets for solo guitar, making excuses about Sarah's absent vocals. Their social media followers grew concerned, sending messages asking about the duo's future. One rainy evening, Maya found Sarah alone in their practice room, crying over an old notebook. Pages of lyrics were scattered across the floor, some in Sarah's familiar handwriting, others in a masculine scroll Maya had never seen before. When she tried to offer comfort, Sarah quickly gathered the papers, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just working on something new," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tear tracks on her cheeks. "James thinks we need more radio-friendly material. He's never forgotten a song we wrote together in high school. Says it could be a hit with the right production." Maya nodded, ignoring the way her stomach clenched at the word "we." In her guitar case, their original EP recordings felt heavier than usual, like a secret about to spill. The autumn evening at Riverside University's Arts Cafe was like any other until Sarah Chen's vanilla latte created a puddle at her feet. She stood transfixed, watching a young woman on stage whose fingers seemed to dance across guitar strings with an almost hypnotic precision. The rich melodies filling the space weren't covers of popular songs like most student performances. They were hauntingly original compositions that made Sarah's songwriter heart skip a beat. Maya Wong sat perched on a wooden stool, her vintage Gibson guitar looking almost too large for her petite frame. Her eyes were closed as she played, lost in a world of her own creation. She didn't notice the small crowd gathering, drawn in by the unusual chord progressions and ethereal finger-picking pattern that had stopped Sarah in her tracks. Without bothering to clean up her spilled drink, Sarah waited by the stage. Her heart raced with the kind of excitement she hadn't felt since discovering her mother's old vinyl collection as a child. When Maya finally opened her eyes and began packing up her guitar, Sarah practically ambushed her. "Those harmonics in your bridge section, they're absolutely brilliant," Sarah blurted out, causing Maya to nearly drop her guitar pick. "I'm Sarah Chen from the music department, and I think we need to talk about your plans for the future." Maya's initial skepticism was evident in her raised eyebrow and guarded posture. She'd heard plenty of grand proposals from other students before, all of which fizzled out after a single session. But something about Sarah's passionate enthusiasm and immediate understanding of her technical choices made her pause. "Give me 1 hour," Sarah pleaded, gesturing to her usual corner table. "If you're not convinced we could create something amazing together, I'll buy you coffee for a week." That 1 hour turned into 6, their conversation flowing from musical influences. Maya's father was a classical guitarist, while Sarah grew up on a diet of jazz and R&B, to their shared frustration with the commercial music scene. Maya's compositions, born from years of classical training, mixed with contemporary influences, perfectly complemented Sarah's powerful vocals and pop-oriented sensibilities. By sunrise, they had roughed out their first song together. Maya's intricate guitar work wove seamlessly with Sarah's soulful melody, creating something neither could have achieved alone. They named themselves Midnight Bloom, inspired by both the hour of their meeting and Maya's mother's flower shop back home. Within weeks, their chemistry became the talk of the music department. Maya's technical precision balanced Sarah's theatrical flair, while Sarah's outgoing personality helped book them gigs that Maya's introverted nature might have missed. They began performing at local venues, their unique sound drawing increasingly larger crowds. When Maya suggested investing her entire college fund, $15,000 saved from years of teaching junior guitar lessons, into producing their first EP, Sarah hugged her with tears in her eyes. "We're going to make it," she promised, her voice thick with emotion. "Together." What Maya didn't notice was how Sarah's gaze lingered on an old photo in her phone that night. A younger version of herself with a handsome young man holding a guitar, both wearing graduation caps. The Instagram post appeared 3 days after the Symphony Hall incident. Sarah Chen, looking ethereal in a vintage dress, her hand intertwined with James's as they stood before the label's logo. The caption read, "Sometimes life leads you back to your first love, both in music and in heart. So excited to announce my solo journey with G. Patterson producing. Thank you to everyone who helped me find my true voice. Hashtag new chapter, hashtag music industry, hashtag dreams come true." Maya read the comments until her vision blurred. Former venue owners who'd booked Midnight Bloom praised Sarah's brave decision to grow artistically. Local musicians who'd once jammed with them at open mics tagged Sarah with congratulations. Even their old coffee shop manager commented, "Always knew you were meant for bigger things." The betrayal spread like wildfire through their tight-knit music community. Sarah's carefully crafted narrative painted Maya as the controlling partner who refused to evolve, who held back their sound with rigid traditionalism. Creative differences became the polite euphemism whispered at open mics Maya no longer attended. Her premium Gibson guitar, the one she'd saved 3 years to buy, sat in its case collecting dust. Every time she touched it, her fingers remembered the songs Sarah had stolen. The pawn shop offered her $2,800 for it. She took the money without haggling, using it to cover next month's rent and her mother's outstanding medical bills. Randy's music shop hired her the same day she applied. Just temporary, she told herself, arranging beginner sheet music on metal racks beneath fluorescent lights that hummed at a constant, maddening G-sharp. The owner assigned her the afternoon shift teaching basic guitar lessons to kids who'd rather be playing video games. The schedule kept her busy from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Coincidentally, the exact hours local radio stations played Sarah's first single. But nights were the hardest. Maya found herself obsessively tracking Sarah's meteoric rise through social media updates. Each post was a fresh wound. Sarah performing their songs on morning shows, Sarah in the studio with genius producer JP, Sarah teasing the album they'd planned together. Their original EP disappeared from streaming platforms without warning, replaced by Sarah's solo versions with new arrangements. The final blow came in the form of a certified letter from the label's legal department. The carefully worded document claimed all intellectual property rights to songs Maya had poured her soul into, citing Sarah's registered copyrights. Attached was a check for $5,000, a gesture of goodwill, to avoid any misunderstandings about authorship. Maya taped the uncashed check to her bathroom mirror, a daily reminder of how little they valued her art. Below it, she stuck a post-it note with the number of a therapist her sister had recommended. She didn't call. Instead, she taught Wonderwall to teenager after teenager, each incorrect chord progression a tiny death to her musician's soul. While somewhere across town, Sarah Chen was becoming a star. Symphony Hall loomed before Maya like a cathedral of dreams, its marble columns catching the early morning light. She'd arrived 3 hours before the scheduled sound check, clutching a coffee and her trusted Gibson guitar, wanting everything to be perfect for their biggest show yet. The security guard recognized her from the performers list, but his puzzled expression should have been her first warning. "Oh, you're here early. They've been at it since dawn," he said, jerking his thumb toward the main hall. The sound of her own composition stopped Maya in the doorway. But instead of the intimate acoustic arrangement they'd perfected over months, she heard something else entirely, driving bass lines, electronic beats, and a full band transforming her delicate guitar work into something almost unrecognizable. Sarah stood center stage, her voice soaring over the instrumental track, while James Patterson conducted the session from behind a mixing board. Maya's hand found the wall for support. The song they were butchering was Mother's Lullaby, the piece she'd written during her mother's final days in the cancer ward, each chord progression carefully crafted to mirror the beeping of hospital monitors and the whispered prayers of her family. Sarah had held her through tears when she first shared it, promising they would honor its meaning together. Now it had been transformed into a radio-ready pop anthem, its intimate grief buried under layers of production. Maya's distinctive finger-picking pattern, the one that had taken months to perfect, had been simplified into basic chord progressions. A session guitarist stood where she should have been, lazily strumming through her most personal creation. "Let's take 5. James's voice boomed through the speakers. "Sarah, baby, that last run was perfect. The label execs are going to love this." Maya's legs carried her down the aisle before her brain could process what was happening. A stack of glossy programs sat on a table by the front row. With trembling fingers, she picked one up. SIMPHONLAHLLKRESENTS. A Star on the Rise. Sarah Chen. Featuring songs from her upcoming debut album. Produced by James Patterson. Special guests. The Metropolitan String Quartet. Her name appeared nowhere. Not as a performer, not as a composer, not even in the small print of credits. Their partnership, their shared dreams, their late-night songwriting sessions, all erased in high-quality printing on premium paper. "Maya!" Sarah's voice cracked from the stage. She stood frozen in the spotlight, microphone still in hand, looking smaller than Maya had ever seen her. For a moment, something like shame crossed her features. But then James appeared beside her, his hand possessive on her shoulder, and Sarah's expression hardened into something unrecognizable. "You're not supposed to be here yet," James said smoothly. "We were going to discuss the new direction after the showcase." Maya opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Instead, she lifted her phone, playing a voice memo from 6 months ago. Sarah's laughter, their excited chatter, and the original version of the song now being stripped of its soul. The recording echoed through the empty hall, a ghost of what they'd once been. "I think you have something that belongs to me," Maya finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. "All of it." Lily Martinez slumped in her chair at Randy's music shop, her purple street hair falling over eyes that rolled dramatically at every correction Maya offered. The 12-year-old's callous fingers fumbled through another attempt at basic chord progressions, her frustration practically radiating off the music shop's wood-paneled walls. "I've been at this for 6 months, Lily groaned, letting her starter acoustic guitar slip into her lap. "My TikTok followers keep asking when I'm going to post a cover, but everything I play sounds like a dying cat. Maybe I should stick to dance videos." Maya watched the girl's shoulders sink, recognizing the same defeat she'd been carrying since Symphony Hall. She was about to recite the usual encouragements about practice and patience when she noticed Lily's phone screen, a viral dance trend set to a pop song Maya actually recognized. "Show me the dance," Maya said suddenly, surprising herself as much as Lily. "What?" "But this is guitar lesson. Trust me. Show me the moves." Lily's face lit up as she demonstrated the intricate hand gestures and body movements that had taken over social media. Maya watched intently, her mind already breaking down the rhythm patterns, translating physical movements into potential chord progressions. "Give me your guitar," Maya said, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Creative spark. Her fingers found the strings, and she began crafting a simplified version of the viral song's melody. But with a twist. She incorporated elements of the dance movements into the strumming pattern, making the physical connection between dance and music visible. "That's it," Lily exclaimed, recording on her phone. "It's like you're playing the dance." For the next hour, Maya broke down the arrangement into digestible chunks, teaching Lily how to combine basic chords in a way that captured the song's essence while remaining achievable for a beginner. By the end of the lesson, Lily was playing a recognizable version of a song she loved, her face glowing with accomplishment. That night, after closing the shop, Maya borrowed one of the display guitars. She set up her old phone camera, took a deep breath, and began recording. "Welcome to Pop Songs Made Simple. Today, we're breaking down that viral dance trend into a guitar arrangement anyone can play. No fancy techniques required, just real music for real people." She walked through her teaching process step by step, explaining how to translate popular songs into manageable guitar arrangements. Her hands shook as she hit post, Remembering the last time she'd put herself out there musically, she forced herself to leave the video up before driving home. The next morning, her phone was flooded with notifications. The video had 50,000 views and hundreds of comments. Finally, someone explaining guitar in a way that makes sense. Can you please do more dance song tutorials? The way you connected the dance moves to strumming patterns is genius. Never thought I could play these songs until now. Maya sat at her kitchen table, reading comment after comment, tears sliding down her cheeks. But for the first time in months, they weren't tears of loss. In teaching others how to make music accessible, she'd found a way to reclaim her own voice. 1 year after the scandal broke, Maya stood in the newly renovated Fresh Start Music Center, running her fingers along the acoustic panels that lined the walls. What had started as a small teaching studio had grown into a 3-story haven for artists, complete with recording spaces, legal consultation offices, and classrooms. The worn gypsum from her Midnight Bloom days hung in a place of honor in the main hall, not as a reminder of betrayal, but as a symbol of resilience. The morning news played quietly on her office TV. James Patterson had pleaded guilty to multiple counts of copyright fraud. His label's investigation had uncovered a pattern spanning 15 years, affecting dozens of young artists. Sarah's career had imploded spectacularly when other victims came forward, each story eerily similar to Maya's. The industry that had once embraced their deception now used their case as a cautionary tale. But Maya hadn't waited for justice to build something meaningful. Her artist protection program had already helped hundreds of musicians secure their rights and understand their worth. The center offered free legal consultations, contract reviews, and most importantly, a community that understood the vulnerability of creating art. Ms. Wang, her assistant, peeked in. The students are ready for the showcase. Maya smiled, remembering her own first showcase at Symphony Hall. But tonight was different. In the auditorium, 30 young artists waited to perform their original compositions, all properly registered and protected. Lily Martinez, now 17 and headed to Berklee College of Music, would be debuting a piece she'd written about finding your voice. As Maya headed toward the auditorium, she caught a familiar figure slipping into the back row. Sarah Chen looked different, older, stripped of the glossy veneer of fame. She clutched a manila envelope and their old demo CD, her knuckles white with tension. Their eyes met briefly. Maya nodded, acknowledging her presence without breaking stride. She had moved past anger long ago, understanding that Sarah's betrayal had led her to create something larger than herself. The center was her true legacy, not the songs that were stolen, but the artists she now helped protect. On stage, Maya adjusted the microphone. Welcome to Fresh Start's first annual showcase. Tonight isn't just about music. It's about integrity, authenticity, and the courage to create something truly your own. She watched Lily take the stage, guitar in hand, confidence radiating from her purple streaked hair to her well-worn boots. The opening notes filled the space, complex, unique, and undeniably original. In the back row, Sarah wiped away tears, perhaps remembering when her own music had been this pure. Later, Maya would find the envelope on her desk, a full confession, signed contracts returning all rights to their joint works, and a handwritten note. I'm sorry. You built something beautiful from my destruction. Thank you for teaching the industry what I failed to learn. Maya pinned the note beside her first viral video thumbnail, then turned to her computer. She had tomorrow's lesson to plan. Finding Your Voice, a guide to authentic creation. The comments were already flowing in from around the world, each one a reminder that sometimes the greatest songs come from the moments after the music stops. It started with a TikTok video from a music theory student in Singapore, analyzing Sarah Chen's Midnight Memories via this archived performance. The split-screen comparison showed Sarah's polished music video beside grainy footage of a Midnight Bloom performance from their college radio days. The student meticulously broke down the similarities: identical chord voicings, the same unconventional time signature changes, even Maya's signature finger-picking pattern adapted for her smaller hands. Notice how the original version's guitar work is more complex, the student explained, playing both versions side by side. The new arrangements simplifies unique elements that made the original special. This isn't evolution, it's dilution. The video reached Maya's subscribers, who began diving deep into archives. Someone uncovered their old EP on Internet Archive. Another found a local music blog's interview where Sarah had credited Maya for arrangements she now claimed as her own. A YouTube musician with perfect pitch demonstrated how Sarah's original composition was actually Maya's work transposed to a different key. #JusticeForMaya started trending in music circles. Music theory professors used the controversy in their classes, analyzing the technical elements that proved the song's origins. 3 separate forensic musicologists published analyses confirming that the intricate guitar work in Sarah's hits matched Maya's documented style from years before. The pressure built when a major music blog, The Sound, published their exposé, The Ghost Behind the Star, unraveling music's biggest copyright controversy. The article featured interviews with venue owners who remembered Midnight Bloom's original performances, archived setlists, and damning timestamps on registered copyrights that predated Sarah's claims. Sarah's carefully constructed facade began cracking. Fan forums noticed she struggled to explain her songwriting process in interviews. During a live acoustic session, she couldn't replicate the complex guitar parts from her own album. When pressed about Midnight Bloom in a radio interview, she abruptly ended the call. The turning point came from an unexpected source, a junior sound engineer at Symphony Hall. He had kept the original soundcheck recordings from that fateful day, including Sarah and James's unguarded conversations between takes. But Maya wrote most of Sarah's voice wavered. "Baby, she was holding you back," James interrupted. "These are your songs now. The label's legal team will handle everything." The audio files spread like wildfire. Music industry veterans began sharing similar stories about James Patterson's predatory practices. Other artists he produced came forward with their own experiences of manipulation and stolen credit. Maya watched it unfold from behind her camera, still creating content, still teaching. Her latest video, Creating versus Copying, a music theory breakdown, never mentioned Sarah, but systematically demonstrated the difference between inspiration and theft. It was shared by several Grammy-winning artists with the #ProtectArtists. When Sarah's album was nominated for Best New Artist at a prestigious award show, the backlash was immediate. The evidence had become too substantial to ignore. James's label announced an internal investigation, their stock price dropping as more artists came forward. The truth Maya had carried alone for so long was finally seeing the light, validated by an entire community of musicians who recognized authenticity when they heard it.